Hey, Debbie. Oh, you're on mute. What up, Mark? I saw you for half a second.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. You missed it yesterday. I was presenting.
Oh, I was obviously wanting to be there. I just been a little bit crazy with the times that are happening within our agency, right?
I
In our
mean,
world.
what? I thought this is normal. Isn't this how we
I
always,
was
isn't this
telling my
how we always
kids,
do business?
I know it. I was telling my kids, like in 115 years, when kids are like, they slugged cars 115 years ago, they're gonna talk about this thing, how it's affected us like this. This is nuts. But
Yeah, it's
cool,
crazy.
cool that NAPA's on the front lines trying to do what they can to keep us, you know, informed and where we're at, what we need to be doing as advisors. So it's good.
Yeah, we're doing what we can, doing what we can.
How are you?
Good, good. Tired. Like this is just, oh my gosh. I mean, I work from home sometimes, but man, this is
Too much
different.
home. Too much home.
Too much home. Yeah, luckily
Yeah.
Nick actually went back to work in his office because there's nobody there, and he's like, his server connection was really bad, and he's like, you're always on the phone and I can't concentrate. So
Oh, that's fun.
yeah, yeah. What are you doing with the kids? Just trying to keep them educated as best you can.
Yes. Well, my wife works in healthcare, so she's not front lines by any means, but she has her doctorate in physical therapy, so she works with a lot of brain injury patients and stroke patients, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we're lucky. We just had our stay at home order yesterday, as a matter of fact, started today. And
Oh.
but our office, we're remote, pretty much everybody except for a couple people at the
Mhm.
office. So because we're essential, we can go to the office. I was at the office this morning um, for a few hours and making sure things are payroll and commissions are all getting done, that kind of thing. And then, but the kids are doing good. Stuff's off Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday every week. So she had them today, but they're not so crazy yet, but getting close.
That's good. Yeah. I think our kids are going on 2 weeks. Now
Wow.
last week is going to be was spring break
Hmm.
anyways for out
Same for
here.
us. Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, they this is another week. So we'll
Yeah.
see. It's interesting times, and that's why we're all getting on these phone calls so that we
That's
can be
right.
as educated as possible. And
That's right.
yep. And let me see. I know we're right at 3 o'clock. Let me see if Suzanne's jumping on. I'm sure she is, but I know, Mark, I feel like I've emailed with you more today than I have like all of 2020.
It's true. I miss you. Uh, I miss the Yak committee, but oh,
I know, I was looking and I was like, well, looks like math is on Mark's side. He's still on the committee.
I'll take it.
She should be joining here in a second.
Is Suzanne presenting?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great.
Here she goes. Oh shoot, I was recording this whole time. I'll have to edit that out. I forget to hit pause. Sometimes I jump on and I just start talking and don't realize that we're recording. So sorry about that.
You say like inappropriate things? Like what happened?
Oh,
She's talking bad
What
about
did I
you,
miss?
Suzanne.
What did I miss?
Talking bad about you.
What did I miss? Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
man.
just talking about how Nick can't stand working at home with me and has to go back to the work.
I just got off the phone with Diane Boyle and her husband's walking behind her, right? She's like making faces. It's a time for, yes, it's a time for. So I tell my husband, I'm like, I'm going to get onto a call. And he's like, right when he decides to make lunch. And I'm like, no, it's like the noisiest chips, the microwave. Like, no, you can't do that. Stop it. Yeah, it takes grace. It's an opportunity for all of us to really grow.
Yes. Well, and Justy actually, she works from home. Her and her husband both work from home every single day. So.
Yep. My husband decided to use the blender the other day during a conference call.
See? There you go.
Home every day. This is not new for us. Like, cut it out.
Standard.
Turn the
That's
blender
your
off.
Yeah, stuff like that just really gets to you. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining today. Today is not so much. Hopefully, is not so much. I'm addressing as more of a discussion. So feel free. Like we can. I want everybody to participate because, and this is also for people who've been here at NAFA a long time to get some feedback, because you have to remember, I'm from my standpoint, I've been here 2 years, coming up on 2 years, and in 130 years, I cannot imagine we haven't done all of these things at least once, and we're just kind of starting to take things back and refresh it and roll it back out. On the other hand, we've never had the structure before, and that is new. And so I think that knowing that we're thinking about our new structure, what this looks like. And so today we were talking really about crisis communications 101. And what I would tell you from where I sit, and this is the discussion part, so this should be just a dialogue today. So Emily, if you just want to like unmute everybody, just feel free to talk, because we're this kind of core team. But COVID-19 hit us, we haven't built this stuff out yet, from my standpoint. And it's hit us at a time where we're like right in, we're still in implementation of what QME really means and what this means for communication, et cetera. So I'm going to give you an example of that. And I only have 2 slides today, but what I did was I took basically just, your crisis communications plans have a billion on them that you can Google, et cetera. And there's usually like about 10 or 8 to 10, 8 to 15 steps in there that you should have as a written format for a crisis communication plan. And so I just want to go through what that looks like today, and then ask, one of you has this for your state or a local chapter, and you already have this in place and you have this thing buttoned up, and we could R&D it, which is rip off and duplicate, and we can use this for the greater good. But from where I'm sitting, we don't have this in place yet. And the structure is just, we don't have the structure in place yet. And it was on kind of the docket to do this year as we're rolling out. If you think about it, we're trying to roll out a new brand, which means that all of us at some point will have the same visual identity. We'll have the same kind of tools. We'll all use the same, templates, if you will. So we get to one brand. In doing that, that's when all the communications channels comes into place too, right? And if you remember, if any of you were in the first leadership training I think I ever spoke at, which I want to say was P+P 2018 in San Antonio, we talked about starting to put together the structure and then seeing so for 2 things. One, how fast can we disseminate information is what is a key in crisis communications. Secondly, how much can we amplify the voice of NAFA from really a promotional standpoint and an advocacy standpoint? So how big can our voice be? If we step back for a second and we say, how fast can we go? How quickly can we disseminate information? There's 2 reasons you want to do that in any organization. One, to move product or program or whatever faster for quicker adoption. And then the second one would be in crisis communication standpoint. So in crisis communication standpoint, the critical factor, right, is making sure that you can get that information out to people, that it's legitimate, it's credible, right, that we're an authority and people are looking to us in this situation. So to say COVID-19 kind of caught us in a standpoint where we don't have all of this interconnected and all of this done yet is, I think, an understatement. But it is a great opportunity to bring it up and probably, again, like everything in my planning for 2020, it just takes what was on the docket for about mid-year and put it like way up in front into first quarter, right? So this was really one of those topics that we were going to try to move to and touch on as we did leadership training in May, and then also back in October when we have those. But let's go ahead and start getting going on it. And at least I'll outline the framework, and then we can just consider it a working group for how we're going to do this, and love, again, your feedback about what you may or may not be doing within your own, within your own chapter. And this gets into an area that is not really outlined in the chapter playbook. None of this is, per se is mandated, but I think you'll see really quickly. And I'm just going to walk through kind of the 10 steps. So again, NAIFA Nation, this is what we're going for, right? So we're going for this stream of communication that it goes from home office to state chapter to local chapter, and also goes from local chapter, state chapter to home office. And this should be a two-way street all the time. If nothing else, COVID-19 has again afforded us the opportunity, and I thank all of you who are sending me stuff like, hey, we want to send this out. Can you give it a look? This is what we're doing, Suzanne. And it's like, hey, that's fantastic. And you take it and you go, good job, NAIFA Indiana, and you showcase it to, the whole world, if you will. So Indiana's doing their piece. We're putting out on NAIFA Nation. Everyone's seeing it. That's starting to work really well. So it's starting to understand, okay, how do we work together, and how do we amplify that voice and, put spotlights on this different elements, because we're a really interesting organization. So that's working great. Actually, I take that back a lot. I think we got a lot of this going during, I think we had a little bit of a precursor to this in a lot of our state advocacy days, or days in the Hill that we've had earlier this, if you even remember that, in first, oh my gosh, like February seems, for all the ones that we've done, January, February, it seems like a lifetime ago at this point. But we started to get a lot of good flow of information, and starting to understand how we can utilize that and work together. So again, COVID-19 gives us what a great opportunity to kind of look at this and say, okay, if this is what we're going for ultimately, how do we go from what we have now to there? And let's take crisis communications as an opportunity to talk about that. So any of your basic crisis communications plans, you're going to have pretty much, like I said, it's usually you'll see between 6, usually kind of 15 steps, depending how granular it gets. First step is anticipating crisis. So this would be that we have already, this would be like for the next wave of COVID-19 if it comes back, or something like that, right? Like we're already ready and have a plan in place. We're understanding that this is something that we need to have. We know that we're going to have, I mean, if you read any of the insurance stuff, which I'm sure you do, we're not going to, Superstorm Sandy, all of these things, we're just going to see more and more of them. So we should already, this is a great opportunity to just get this together, because we're not going to see the last of crises for the United States. So it's knowing that you're going to have a crisis, understanding this, and that we need to have a good way, now that we're NAIFA Nation, for how we're going to put this into effect. Okay, so that's the first kind of step of it. The second is to say, we need to identify a crisis communications team. And I'd say pretty much the chapter staff, that's, the staff, let's forget where you sit, staff, we're it. We're going to be, that's a big part of the team. The question I think would be there, now this is something, at different chapters, sometimes the chapter, paid staff person sees themselves as this person. Sometimes they see this as a volunteer position. Okay. And I think that's a good question. So I don't know if anybody has identified anybody in your chapter, and this person, like you have an actual person who this is their role, or where that fits. But from where I've seen, it's a little bit ambiguous. Any feedback on that?
Not like I could find anybody.
It's ambiguous.
It's ambiguous, right? Well, let's write that down. Let's just put it down. This is a working group. This is ambiguous. We've never done this before. Am I wrong in that? Have we done this before at some other decade of NAIFA? Because we didn't have the structure. I don't know why we would have it. I think it's all new. Okay, so I think we have to identify that crisis communications team. I'd likely to say it's probably going to have to be people that are paid by NAIFA, right? Because otherwise it's a volunteer kind of position. So we probably need to figure that piece out. And then I think the third one, and that I've asterisked 3 and 4, because if we don't even have the crisis communications and that's ambiguous, then look at 3 and 4. We certainly probably haven't identified the right spokespeople and trained them for this situation. Now, and again, chime in if your state might have this. Again, with Chris Barnhouse over in Indiana, who is like a trained, he was an Army communications guy. I think they're ahead of, I think we can look a lot and they can lead us in this. I'm going to ask him to put together part of this team to build this out. But I think for most of us, the spokesperson typically in this case would probably be a member, right? Because we'd want a licensed person speaking, and this would be like who's going to talk to, let's say, the media, who's going to actually talk on behalf of NAFA, you know, chapter. And again, a little bit depends of who that is. Sometimes the exec is also the lobbyist and therefore is speaking on behalf. So I think it a little bit depends on that. But again, I think we can agree, ambiguous, a little ambiguous. Can we all got a nod or anything on that? Yeah, nods on that. So identifying who that person is, and maybe it's like always the chapter president. And we just know that that's part of the new training, that this is part of your role. We're going to get you the media training, you know, you're part of the crisis plan, et cetera, because that fourth piece is training that person, right? So that they understand if you get the call, you know, you are representing NAFA blank, you know, fill in that blank of whatever that might be. So whether you're speaking on behalf of all of NAFA, or you're speaking for, you know, NAFA Oklahoma or NAFA Ohio, or whatever the case may be, or you're talking for NAFA Cincinnati or NAFA, you know, Tampa, whatever the case might be, you know who that is, you're ready, and you're a person. And this is kind of comes part and parcel with a whole group that we'd like to have, which is somebody who can be identified and that we can put in front of the media in those respective areas. Because again, it's a huge area that we don't have a consistent spread across all of our 50 states and some of the territories. And what an opportunity if we were able to say for, you know, for 2021, let's just for the local media, here's our person. And we know that that person, like every time we come out with somebody, that's the person who's submitting stuff to the media. That's the person who the media knows to call. Does that make sense? Imagine if we had just 50 people. Imagine we had 10 people and it was like in major markets, how much pickup we could get from NAFA. And so again, that's on the list to do. This just COVID-19 has just bumped this way up in order to do this. Now, one thing with that, again, with crisis comes opportunity. With bumping up our financialsecurity.org and going direct to consumers a little bit faster, we're getting a lot of pickup from the media, and we're getting a lot of, again, our legislators at both the state level and federal level saying, hey, look at NAFA, right? So we're saying that's great. So it would be great if we could quickly start to identify one person who's a member who might want to take that role on in the short term through this piece of it, because especially with the work that we put out so far with scams and cybersecurity, that's getting a lot of attention, right? And if there's somebody that we could kind of lock in right there, we could quickly turn that around and like, we could get something, an op-ed piece written, we could get something written and get it, have that person submit it into, let's say, the paper at a local level. All right, so something to think about. Great way to get member recognition. We would kind of do the heavy lift for them, but you have to have the, like, I don't want to say the real person, but you got to have the licensed advisor who's the real member, the one to submit into the newspaper, into the local radio, TV station, et cetera. They want that person, okay? So if you happen to be that person and you're the staff person, well, then you're like the double, you know, you're the double bonus person. But those are, I think, two things in particular, I think we could walk away today and start thinking about and saying, maybe we should get a little working group and like come back next week and like move fast track this. Because I think with the financialsecurity.org and what we're going to do on the consumer side, we can get enough momentum there as we kind of go through the rest of this crisis time together. Okay. Comments, questions on that? All good? Jan,
Great stuff, Suzanne.
you want to add? Okay. Oh, since that's you, Mark Aker, I can hear your voice there. So if you haven't seen, we put together, let me just show you, since we're talking about it before we move into the next thing and we go, oh my gosh, look at the other stuff we have to do. since we're talking about financialsecurity.org. And you're not going to see that unless I share my screen. There we go. All right. So under financialsecurity.org, we are continuing to build out these resource kits. And so this is a page that I was saying that we amassed a bunch of information, then we pulled it out and we made its own little kit. All right. And so and we're just adding to this every day. And so we're having more and more people pick up on this. You know, tomorrow we're going to have a press release that goes out talking about that we've done this in particular. We had two representatives pick this up and either tweet about it directly or put it on Facebook, and we've added that to the press release. I'll add that to, I haven't sent out the leaders alert yesterday. I'll send it probably today because we have so much to tell you. We'll put it in there anyway. So you know that's going to go out tomorrow. That's what's really getting a lot of the pickup here. So again, what would be great is, here's another thing we could think about. If any of your members, if you should know who in your whole world is doing anything around the cybersecurity or personal security or identity theft, or this is kind of one of their big pieces. Maybe they're doing a lot of business to business, you know, they're doing a lot of, they're only working with businesses in their client portfolio. That would be something great to know. Okay. And if you notice, as we get into small business, we also released small business today. And so in small business, which is again a super hot topic, you can see we've started to put in our actual member videos. So we've got Karina Hatfield, and then we also have Jennifer Hodges, right? And so being able to have these members who have done these direct to consumer videos talking about these topics right within here, yeah, that is marketing gold for NAFA. For NAFA, in this case, Missouri, and then in Karina's case, NAFA, Pennsylvania. But we're able to get, you know, now the policymakers in particular are seeing directly what our members are doing, right? And again, we can help change that narrative about what our members do, paint them in a positive light, et cetera, okay? So where I'm going with that is, these are obviously, I'd already picked these two as spokespeople, okay? So again, if we have a particular topic, as we start to build this out, we're like, okay, we have an opportunity. We know that people are looking right now. I mean, the phones are blowing up, but we know in the commissioner's offices, in the representative's office, the senator's office, about cybersecurity, about scams. If you're thinking through your membership, you're like, who could we put forward? Who could get involved in this dialogue? That helps us to push that forward. Okay, so just a couple of things to think about that. All right. All right, so going back over, and again, wouldn't it be great if we had all this stuff just worked out? But so be it. Number 5 on the crisis communication plan. And by the way, if you're on the phone right now and you're thinking about how you should have this for your business as well. But number 5, so we should have it at NAFA as a whole, at state level, local level, and all the way back up. Number 5 is establishing notification and monitoring systems. Okay, let's talk about NAFA. This would be like, we have this like sort of put together, but not really. We have emails that we're sending out to everyone, but we have a huge number of people who've opted out of email. They've either opted out of getting NAFA home office email because they're only getting the state email, or the local chapters also sending email. We have 3 levels of email, right? Plus we have third-party providers who are sending a NAFA email as NAFA. Does that make sense? So we've got a lot of noise on the email circuit. So what happens, could be okay, as long as the member really understands how often is they're getting in, you know, when are they getting the email? What does it mean? Who do they pay attention to? All the emails don't have the same information. No one's telling them like, don't listen to NAFA National, or don't listen to the state, or the state only puts it, you know, you see what I'm saying? You see the issue. We haven't buttoned that stuff up yet. We haven't figured out together how we're gonna easily communicate down and then tell the member, you look at this email for this one, look at this email for this one, or nor do we have something where we say it's a blackout period, everybody stop, only go to this one system, right? And in crisis, we probably want that, because we probably need to know if that's going to be the case, everybody stops, or we just all get on the phone and say, everybody send the same message, okay? We don't have that. Certainly we don't have that right now. We don't have it with email, which is what most of us do. We certainly don't have it on our websites. We most definitely don't have it on our social media. Okay, so we need to work to a time frame where we've got all of those pieces together, and then probably have a text messaging system that also we can alert the right people. So it's not just email, because we have to have some other factors. Does that make sense where we're trying to get to? So we don't have those processes in place or those operations, but that's where we need to go to, okay? And you can see in times like that why that would be critically important. So if we get to a point and we're like, hey, as a NAFA nation, we're all gonna do this thing together. We're all gonna, whatever it might be. Nobody's having whatever that case might be. We're all gonna respond in this way. We have to have that kind of piece put in. And so again, I think we put it on our list of things to slog through and figure out how we're gonna do that, and then work together to get really clear on those communication channels, okay? So then moving on, the last kind of couple of these would be, so then the sixth part, which again, we need to do anyway, is just crisis steps it up. So identifying and knowing your stakeholders. So this is really saying, who are we communicating this to? So if we have a crisis communication and we need to send it out, to whom are we speaking? And so in our case, we always have our members is going to be first and foremost as the target audience, right? And that what they need to know, we're going to take care of them first. The second would be knowing, do we have a list of media contacts? If we need to communicate out to the media, if we need to communicate out to the quote unquote market or the greater media, do we actually have that developed and at the go? Should we need to do this? So again, if we need to move as saying, we can take, let's take I'm trying to think of a great, all of NAFA has decided that we're going to respond in whatever. So let's just say supporting ABC charity for COVID-19. We would want to know that everybody, that who's on point for each, let's say state, and let's say local chapter, and then you have your set of media outlets that you use all the time, and we're like, okay, here's the communication, you take it, it's shifted to your voice for that particular state or local, and you've got those contacts, and it goes out to the stakeholders. Does it make sense? So that's where we would build that piece in there too. So we'd want to always know that our job is to communicate first and foremost to members, secondly, really to the media. Okay, and in that I'd put our legislators, et cetera, all right? The seventh piece, so again, I think we can agree, I think we have this sporadically, that some chapters have that, some don't. We have that somewhat, we certainly have a list of media that we talk to from the home office standpoint. We certainly could grow that and should grow that now that we're talking directly to consumers too, right? We actually found out we haven't been looking at that one too thoroughly, and we need to, again, get those things dusted off. And COVID-19 is a great opportunity to realize you need to have that stuff at the ready. So 7 would be have holding statements. So this is something we can do right away. And so let's talk about a crisis, either, and it can be positive or negative. Usually crisis is negative, but let's say something has just occurred. A holding statement is what you're going to put out while it gives you some time, right? So anytime something has just happened, someone has, passed away, some completely unforeseen situation has arisen, you never want to respond right away. You never want to just kick in and just have it come in a crisis when you're speaking on behalf of an entity, right? So a holding statement allows you to give you that time to have some poise. And basically what you say is, we're enacting our emergency crisis situation right now, or we've gotten the emergency committee together, or however we're going to say it. Our board is now coming together to enact our emergency crisis communication plan, and we'll be able to get back to you shortly, right? So you have to respond. But let's say the newspaper calls you up, or media calls you up, and they immediately want you to respond right there. You never fall into that trap. Okay, and there's a couple of traps in media training that you learn all the time. For example, if a reporter is asking you a question and they put you on the spot and then they just hang there and they leave that space open, they want you to fall right into it, and you just, because our natural tendency is to fill that space, right? Instead of understanding, I'm going to answer, the reporter's trying to get you to say something, you know, that before you're ready. Your job is to go back to a set of talking points and respond to your talking points. You know, you constantly come back to the same talking points. The holding statement gives time for the organization to get the talking points together so that the spokespeople can get updated, trained, and then be able to respond back, and we're all having the same message, okay? So that's something that, you know, again, a huge undertaking, but you never want to be in a situation, again, if our members know this because they live and breathe it every day, you know, there's a reason you practice so much. You practice overcoming objections, and you practice the questions, and you practice the conversation. So we also need to be able to build up that capability as an organization so that we understand, you know, what our talking points are before. Again, if we were in a crisis communication, we had it all buttoned up, we'd already have this, all right, done. So we'd have our holding statements, they're at the ready, I'm pulling them out, and I'm saying, you know, okay, we've already gone ahead and done X, Y, and Z, okay? Now, luckily, as NAFA, we're not the, you know, Petroleum Association. We're not gonna have like, hopefully like the Exxon Valdez, not to date myself, but, you know, something like that where it's so disastrous. I mean, hopefully we're not, our crises are a little bit different. You know, I tell my team all the time, we're not doing heart surgery here, right? But I mean, it's still, every organization should have this in place, all right? The 8th step, of course, is to actually assess the crisis and say, how big of it is it? Now, again, with opportunity, or crisis comes opportunity, you know, our people are considered essential. So the crisis situation that we're looking at COVID-19 is actually a go time for NAFA. It's a go time for us to say, you know what, we're here. Right? And how fast can we tell the story of we're here and we're now in a, you know, we're working as hard as we can, as quickly as possible to drop everything to say, we're giving these materials out there to the market because someone needs them. The bad guys are out there right now in cybersecurity. All this stuff is happening and boom, we're just answering the call. And that's what our people do, right? So for us, COVID-19, I'm not going to say it's a good thing. It's an opportunity. Okay, there's a real positive that our members play in this situation for how we can assess it and respond to it. And that's what we were talking about yesterday. I think, yeah, day before yesterday, Tuesday, about assessing the crisis situation. What does it mean to NAFA? For NAFA, this is a real opportunity for us to basically say, this is what we do all the time. Here's the people you want in this situation. This is why you have a financial plan. This is exactly why you've done insurance. We're here to help. That's really what we're saying. So while you have your holding statements and you're assessing, then you're finalizing and adapting your key messages. That's kind of what I gave you on Tuesday. Here's our talking points. Here's what we're going to go through. Here's the story we're telling. Here's the narrative that we're always going to push. And then the 10th part of any crisis communication is that hopefully when it's all done, and hopefully I would love to believe President Donald Trump that that's Easter, that COVID-19 is done. But whenever this thing should pass, you do a postmortem, right? It's just like you hopefully do on your events, just hopefully you do on whatever your board meetings, et cetera. You turn around and you say, okay, how'd we do, right? What do we do right? What can we improve? And constantly asking those two things, and you wrap it up and say, okay, let's put it back into our findings and let's get better, all right? So of all those 10 steps, right, you can see how much work we have to do as a team. Is that clear? It's not clear how much we have to do, but how fast will we be able to go if we had all this buttoned up? So we're not going to get there tomorrow. You know, Rome's not built in a day, but I did want to put it out there because I think it's important we get a structure in place about what we're building to and how we can bring this together to contribute. So you guys have been awfully quiet and said, you know, respond back. So who's got any comments? Questions? Anybody have any of this we can use already, or people that you want to cough up to say, hey, this would be a great member who could be part of this?
Suzanne,
Yeah.
excuse me, New Mexico has a member, he's actually a person on our board, who also works for a cybersecurity company. and he was going to be one of our speakers for our convention. So we're looking at April 2nd that we're going to do a New Mexico Zoom meeting that he and his company will address all of our members. And I'm not sure exactly what it's going to say, except to make sure your firewalls are up and, you know, how to do cybersecurity wise what you're asking, if that's helpful at all.
I think that's extremely helpful. I mean, do you think, much like where Texas said, hey, we're going to talk about the Secure Act, would New Mexico be willing to share that with everyone? And then could we also look to them to say, hey, maybe they have something we could do as a separate webinar, and maybe we could do a tweet chat or something with them that they could have something direct to consumers?
I'm sure he'd be willing to do just about anything. If you'd like, when we get offline, we could figure out, I can include you in the invite for that Zoom, and you can preview it, and that way you can give us direction on what you want to do with it afterwards.
Okay. Fantastic. Anything else? Anybody have any other ideas? Was that helpful? Was this like good?
Oops.
Do you want to unmute everybody? Is everybody muted?
I think it's very helpful because it's something that we probably should have had way back at 9/11. You know, the same scenario, just in a different venue right now. But had we done all this then, we wouldn't be trying to reinvent the wheel right now.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up as my working analogy, but yes, it's a good one. Yeah. And again, I mean, I don't know why we would, I mean, the structure, so many times people say, why don't we already have this? Like, well, the structure wasn't there that we would ever have needed these things. It would have been done at the local, you know, everything was just done at the individual level. So it's, yeah, but like I said, no time like the present. And then again, you can imagine though the power of if we had all this in place, just think about begin with the end in mind. This is all in place, right? And we were all saying the same thing. Again, there's no reason that NAFA shouldn't have the same power as some of the big, well-known organizations like that people turn to all the time. You know, we're not a small organization. You know, I mean, I know we're not at our glory years of 130,000 members, but you know, we're still a pretty big national powerhouse organization when you put us all together. So, and we certainly representing 90 million American households. That's not a small piece of the economy either.
Hey, Susanna, I just wanted to say kudos on the resources that you put together for this, and also on the phone calls, because I was asking my guys for anecdotes and stories and, you know, tips and things like that. And I was getting back a lot of stuff from the internet, which wasn't very compelling. So I'm glad you guys stepped up with that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jan. And yeah, and we need more. So we need to keep encouraging our members to send in more. And I think that with financialsecurity.org, I think that's a great opportunity for people to see how it all comes together, right? See how we can position videos and all of those pieces. My hope is that in April, that we can quickly put together, like, I'd like to see, like, again, let's talk about what NAFA, what we really can do. These town halls we've done every day at noon, we had the idea on Friday afternoon. On Friday, right? I mean, that was Monday we started, and we have had 200 people every day come to this, right? And I mean, that's incredible. And so then everyone's, so they're loving it. So they want to like continue on, and we want to continue on. And it's like, that's what, and all of a sudden, the next thing you have is, were you guys all on this week thus far? Right?
Yeah.
The next thing you know, you've got like, the sister associations want to come in, and here comes MDRT, right? And here comes, and people are like, hey, what's going on over at NAFA? Well, that's how it starts. There's the demand, right? So now it's like, hey, that's great. We're starting to get all eyes on us. You know, that's some of the best stuff you can do for growing membership, for growing all the stuff, for having us unified, for elevating the profession. And the fact that we can now say, look, let's all together focus in on putting out that information direct to consumer through financialsecurity.org. Like, come on, bring it in, let's go. It's a real unifier. And so I think it's extremely powerful. I think when this press release comes out tomorrow, hopefully everybody, all of you guys pick it up, you know, put it out in some format. Like I said, I can send you the link where it'll be published tomorrow. It's going to go out on PR Web, so it's going out on the real wire, if you will. And then if you post it places, etc., you know, again, it just helps to spread it faster. So I'm hoping to see, I know that I'd like to see that Zach's calendar and Andy's calendar are completely full, and we're just rolling out people day after day after day. Because I think once, it's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to see it, right? It's another thing to see it and experience it. And again, that's what we do best. So I think if we can do that, I think we'll be in great. So you can see that we've got the work cut out for us here. We're going to take it in baby steps. You know, we're going to do it together. It's a collaborative process of how we're going to build this this thing out. But yeah, well, thank you for your time again. I really appreciate it, and I think we're doing really good stuff here.
So Suzanne, are there any like best practices or tips, you know, as far as you kind of talked about, like when should we go dark? Are we kind of over that period? Should we continue to start building the message back in that NAEP is still here? What's kind of some good direction on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And since you said that, it gave me pause to say, you know, we haven't really been using our YM chapter staff kind of group, but maybe we should. And maybe we should kind of on a weekly basis kind of say, okay, this week, here's what we think is, you know, we should do this, you know, week by week, because we are on such it changes, as you know. I don't even know if I could go week by week. It's almost like
Almost daily.
Almost day by day.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, and it's like every day a different state has a different mandate that's going, you know, Minnesota goes into effect. I think tomorrow, it's either tomorrow night or tomorrow morning, their stay-at-home order, you know, and so what does that mean? You know, and I've had people emailing me saying, okay, different states have different things as far as what the insurance and financial services industry is considered essential or not. And, you know, those types of questions are always coming up too.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where Julie Harrison is being really helpful in kind of looking at all of that, and she's, you know, keeping a track of what each state's doing and putting that out there, et cetera. So I think the best way would be, we'd have to figure out, because I don't want to do an email. I think we'd probably post it in the chapter staff group or the leaders group, one of the two, or maybe both. But we'll put it in there. But that means, you know, when we talk about number 5 here, establishing notification and monitoring systems, we've never really said, hey, look, it's time for all eyes to be on this social link group, and you have to go in and look at it all the time, because it doesn't email you, it doesn't really notify you. And there you go. There's an opportunity that if we were all using that all the time, if we all were on the same, you know, instant messaging channel or text messaging or something, that we would know that. And we haven't had that. So maybe we take a vote. We do it democratically. Yeah. Like, we've got more than enough.
Do you guys, is everybody on this call familiar with what Suzanne's talking about as far as the social link and the leadership chapter within that? Silence, yes. Silence, no.
Hi, I'm familiar with it, but I just haven't seen anything really posted in there other than people inviting others to join them or accept them in their social link, I guess. So I don't check it very often because there hasn't been content in there that I've seen. So I checked it the other day, so I can say that there wasn't any content yet. So I think that at least letting us know if we are going to start doing that, to let us know some way to begin looking there again.
Can you screen share the that particular page?
Yeah, I was actually just going to go there, unless Suzanne, you're already there.
No, go ahead.
Okay, give me a sec. I'm close, but not quite.
Is that where Shannon puts all that stuff?
Yes, yes, you are correct.
I put some stuff in there, but not enough of my members have connected that it's become a, you know, go-to place. Right. But it's got the, you know, potential for that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so give me, okay. So
yeah, no, it's just organically grown at this point. We've never really said yet, right? Like, okay, this is what we're doing. So I think that's, you know,
yeah. So this is this is the redirect for the NAFA homepage. And so you just go here to member login, and it has remembered me, but it's what you've had signed in there. And here, and then it takes you straight there. So, here's Brian Holtz reminding people for that. But then within here, there's different groups, and give me a second. So here, this is the first one that pops up for me is the Leader Center. So this one is actually anybody who has been reported as leadership. So that would be, chapter presidents, anybody who's on the leadership board, because you saw that it was like 1,000 people. It was over 1,000 people in this group. But here's Suzanne posting early March before the world changed.
Yeah.
But it looks like Suzanne's a big poster in here. Nobody else is really using. There's an old one from Shannon, Sherry, things like that. So
But were you
different groups in here? Sorry. Yep.
Were you talking about using the staff one instead of the leaders one?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, the chapter staff, this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what the message is that we're trying to get out, as far as which, if we're talking about, okay, we need to have an all NAFA communication and make sure that, all of our chapters are communicating on the same page. That would be a chapter staff thing, in my opinion, because we're telling you as the chapter staff the message, because you're the ones who are responsible typically for getting out the emails. Our volunteer leaders usually are not the ones who are hitting send on the email. But if there was something that we did need to get out to all leaders, then we could use that. But there are different groups in here. You don't necessarily have to be connected to all of the people in the group to be able to post. And then each of you should have like your own chapters as well. So if you wanted to send a message to everybody in your chapter, I was the former exec of Arkansas, so I'm still in here. But here's information about you can do group news or a group blog, or just the group feed. So. Anyway, so that's just kind of a quick thing with Social Link.
But you guys can see how many things are in there and how many options and how many places you put this. And again, these were all topics that we were going to plan to start to tackle at leadership, at congressional conference, and things like that. So hopefully we will still do that. But I think, again, you can see COVID-19, it speeds up the whole piece of it about, okay, what is the right thing? What makes we have to be on the same page, right? Now we're just putting it in different places. We also have a LinkedIn group. We have, this group, as you guys know, we have stuff all over the place. So it's getting really crisp on saying, okay, for the next couple of weeks, you're going to look at this. And probably when I say this, it's probably going to be the leader's email, and we'll just send more of them. Because I think everybody's pretty attuned to that and looking at that piece, and not everybody's over the hump yet of kind of getting into Social Link and the logins and those types of stuff. And, we'll continue to do that, but we need to bring up Social Link now and have that kind of come into the fray.
Mm-hmm. And Debbie, to answer your question, she said, does everyone see what's posted, or only people in that particular group? Only the people in that particular group. So when, so if we were in that Leader Center where Suzanne had put those, only the 1,118 people that are in that group.
Right, right.
For the chapter staff group, there's 63 people in there. So only those 63 people who have been identified as chapter staff get that message.
So if you see something in there, it's up to you to get it out to all the members. I guess I had the wrong idea on this Social Link thing. I thought for everybody, the members would get in there and you post it and everybody would see it, but that's not true.
Right.
No.
So there's the groups, and then there's the overall news feed. And so
Okay.
there's,
Okay.
But to your point, Debbie, not that clear yet. We've never defined it yet, and we've never rolled it out. So you're not wrong. It's
Okay.
completely at this point organic, and it hasn't been defined. And so
Gotcha.
that's why it's so used hit or miss, because again, it's just been organically out there. You see people come in, they'll connect, they'll say like, oh, they joined the yacht group or whatever. But we've
Right.
prescriptive to say, okay, look, you're onboarded. You're now going to do X, Y, and Z.
Gotcha. So bottom line, if I see something on there that I feel like all my members should see, then I would get it out there, correct? Take it from, okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
And yeah, the safe thing to assume is that nobody from none of your chapter members saw that.
Good. I was a little confused on that. Thank you.
No, you're not. No, you're absolutely right. Because in order to really do those online communities, you need to have online community managers who are doing right, and that's a whole other
Ball game. Yeah. Okay.
That's a
Gotcha.
whole other ballgame. And so we're just getting there. So we've got we've got the infrastructure, we've got the technology. It's really now about when do we put it out, and then how do we, again, step through it and move together. So we're all looking at the same place.
Gotcha. We're getting there. Okay. Thanks.
We're getting there. It's even like the bane of my existence. One of them is our LinkedIn private members group, who has a variety of people in there. Some are members, some are no longer members. We have some media in there, you know what I mean? So it's not really a private group, but it's just been organically out there for years.
Right.
So you don't dial it back and get rid of it when we're not ready to move over. But
Gotcha.
knowing people are posting, it's one place that someone is getting information. So I'll post in there too. But you can imagine we have so many different places. And that's one of the that our message is very fractured.
Gotcha.
So we got to figure that out and clean up all of those things.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So again, figuring out together, right? There's
Right.
one right way, but it's figuring out how do we put those communication channels together. So we're also not spending, I don't know, do you guys have 4 hours a day to post to, 16 different places? No, nobody does.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's time consuming. So we're also trying to figure out that.
It really is to post on all those social things. It really is. Okay.
It really is. It really is time consuming. And so there are tools that you can put in place. So it's not that time consuming, right? And again, we want to use every piece of automation and technology we can, because so that we're not spending our time doing that, write the message once and get it out.
Exactly.
So we can spend our time with more value-added stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we're aiming to do, because no one has, that type of time. And again, if we're going to move and say, okay, well, we're going to put on our enterprise hat, like if we're State Farm, if we are Wendy's International, if we're McDonald's International, Nike, et cetera, those systems they use to propagate out to all of those different places. We're looking at how do we work in the same structure.
Gotcha.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of it all being like manual.
Little everywhere. Okay.
Right.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, COVID-19 is just speeding everything up.
Ready or not, here we come.
Here we go. Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely time to come together and figure out, okay, well, what can we do now? So I think even back to, and I'll send out our deck that we just did, but I think if we can right now start thinking about our membership that we know that could fit into some of these categories, making sure, understanding that they have that option, or in financialsecurity.org, that this is a great time, that not only do the consumers need the information, but it's only a win-win for them to be able to get out in front of, consumers, and we're highlighting them. And then understand that, we're looking to say, okay, as we step forward, let's take probably the next one that may or may not come up, which is the cancellation of congressional conference and what that might look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're monitoring that either all the time on a daily basis. Should that, because of all the stuff with COVID-19, well, we need to be in lockstep with that one, right? So that's not necessarily a crisis, but you know, you want it, same type of thing. We're anticipating it, we're gonna go through the process. We're anticipating the crisis being must cancel the entire conference and figure out, knowing that historically we didn't knock it out of the ballpark when we canceled people with that hurricane, right? So learning from that and then saying, anticipating the crisis, okay, do we have our crisis communications team in place? You know, do we have a spokesperson who we could already think who could, like, we could talk and say, either support and say what we are gonna do or something. You know, we'll go right through the step and take it through as an exercise.
Hey, Suzanne,
Yeah.
financialsecurity.org, do you have a graphic well, I can always make the link, but to put into our newsletters on our website and in social media?
We do.
I just don't know
And
where
I
it's
have,
at.
yeah, we haven't, that's because we haven't even had time to post it, but we'll
What
do.
have you been doing?
I know, slacking, completely slacking.
That's all right. I just thought I missed it.
No, you didn't miss it. We put out the first kit. We got it out to, we peddled it basically to all the legislators, and that was on scams. But then I have the graphics as well for just like financialsecurity.org as a whole. So I have that, package all that up, and we'll get it out.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, great. Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay, awesome. Well, everybody,
Thank you.
healthy. Bye.
Linda, I'll call you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.